Hello. Tonight I was absolutely dedicated to being here before 6 o'clock to make sure that we got any technical glitches out of the way. And yay! Yay, success. So here we are, 4 minutes early, and I'm feeling successful. I'm feeling like maybe you understand this new thing about YouTube. You know, they're making a shift from the classic, they call it, to the beta way of doing this. And there are little wrinkles in there. So I'm so sorry that I was not available for you last week. The 2 weeks prior to that, I was on vacation. And so here we are, a whole month later than the first or the last show that we actually did live. So I'm excited. Now, for all good reasons. I've heard from so many of you on Facebook, on YouTube, making comments on the videos, on the podcasts, on the various things that are there for you. There's so much. There's over 320 videos. So there's many, many things there. So if you haven't had a good look or you haven't subscribed, please for sure subscribe and then hit the little bell next to it so that that allows you to receive notifications when there's a new video. And it will also help you get here on Monday evenings so that we can be together and actively be part of the chat, which is really great. So I hope that you'll say hello and jump in. So I know that you're here and ready to roll. I hope you have your questions ready. You know, this is your opportunity to ask questions. And yes, the things that I say cannot be construed as therapeutic because I don't know who you are. I don't know your story. I don't know your history. I don't know all the facts about whatever's going on in your life or the progression of your relationship or the progression of your divorce or court or your kids or anything. But I will sure do my best to give you generally accurate answers to any of the questions that you put in the chat tonight. And that's my commitment to you. And I want to be really honest about that. This is not therapy. But if you want to work with me, I do have an offer for new clients. And you may have heard me offer this before. Go to beaclient.com and you can get the first full 1-hour session for only $97. So if you hear things here that you think, oh, I could help you move that along or get more information or give you a more in-depth answer, please feel free to do that. Use that offer for that initial one-time session for 1 full hour, a regular session for only $97 at beaclient.com. Yes, I'm surprised too that I was able to get that domain for myself, but go to beaclient.com and we can talk and we can solve problems, we can interact, and that'll all be great. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to work together and to solve problems because it is a full session. Also, you may have noticed that I now refer to the website, my website, as transformingrelationship.com. Not transformingrelationships.com. I can't do all of them. Transformingrelationship.com. It'll take you to the very same place that forrelationshiphelp.com takes you. But I just prefer the idea that we can be empowered to transform any relationship, including the one with ourselves. And so that becomes really important to me to make that shift, to be clear about that transformingrelationship.com possibility in our life. Because sure, we can't change another human. We can't make them be different. If we have a hijackal in our life, we can't change them. But we can transform relationship by knowing more, recognizing more, having strong boundaries, clarifying, communicating, conflict management, so many things that we can do that can help us transform and make a huge difference. And so I hope that you will say hello and let me know that you're here when you join us, and that we will be able to have a great conversation tonight. Tonight's subject, as you may know, is rebuilding self-esteem after emotional abuse. Yeah, it's sad that we have to go through emotional abuse and have our self-esteem worn down and torn down and then have to rebuild it. But the good news is that there are ways to do that. In fact, you can do it quite systematically. Tonight, I'm going to give you some 8 steps that you can take, and they actually are in some kind of order. You may not always want to do them in that order, but in some kind of order I'm going to offer you that will get you, off the ground and moving in the direction of greater self-esteem. Hello, Yehudit. Shalom to you as well. I'm so glad that you can be here, and I thank you so much for your communication to ask about it while I was on vacation and the good wishes for my vacation. It was lovely, and I hope that you are doing well. When you join in and you let me know that you're here, I like to see that, because I know that I may be able to draw from your experience or your questions. And every time you ask a question or share something in the chat, you're helping me respond to you, of course, but there will probably be 50 other people who would like to know the answer to your question. So do ask them so that you feel really encouraged to move forward with that. So, as I said, tonight is about rebuilding self-esteem. Hijackals, those relentlessly difficult, toxic people that I talk about all the time, their whole thing is diminishing and discounting you. And so that's going to take a toll on your self-esteem if you're around them very much, and particularly if you were raised by one as I was. In fact, I was raised by 2. I think I've told that story before on this live stream, but not good for the self-esteem to have these folks around. I'm sure that you've probably learned that yourself. And so we want to know, all right, once we recognize that there has been emotional abuse, and I've done live streams on recognizing emotional abuse. Once you recognize that, whether it's your partner, your ex, a sibling, a coworker, your parents, then you need to recognize what it's done to your self-esteem. And from your self-esteem, it will have damaged your self-confidence, perhaps. And the good news is there are many things that you can do about it and with it so that it can get much better. So I would love to hear from you when you join us so that I know that you're here. If you have anything to say about self-esteem right now, as we're waiting for a few people to join in as they remember the 6 o'clock Pacific time has arrived, please feel free to put it in the chat. Back in the day, I was reminded by a client I was working with today who's sort of in my age bracket. And I remember back in the day, and I was recalling with her, that we used to hear the word conceited a lot. Don't be conceited. That sounds conceited. And what they meant was you were full of yourself or you were arrogant. And it was so restrictive where I grew up that if you said that you did anything well or you thought you did well, even if you just won a Pulitzer Prize and you said, I must have done it well, they would have said, now you're getting too big for your britches, you're getting full of yourself, you're being conceited. And that was something that, as teenagers, we certainly didn't want to be seen as conceited. So the things that have happened to us in our life, the different times in which we were born, the different prevailing customs or the prevailing systems or the mores of the times or whatever, have to be taken into consideration when we start to think about how did I arrive at who I am? What was I given by those giants that raised me? And where did my self-esteem start? Did I start at a high point, or was I raised by Hijackal, so I was worn down? that I only get praised when I made them look good, because that's what happens with hijackals. You'll only be validated when you make the hijackal parent look good. They're not very interested in you. I mean, the ultimate narcissistic thing is when a parent says to you, "What are you crying for? If you're going to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. I'll be the one who is the author of your pain." It's kind of the ultimate narcissistic response. And yes, those things were a little prevalent 50 years ago. But hijackals haven't changed much. And they may want to be the author of your pain. They may want to be the author of your second guessing yourself or feeling a little bit like you're crazy. How many times do I hear in my groups, in my membership at Optimized Circles, which I hope you'll all join because we're very close to the critical point where the price is going to go up. And if you're part of Optimized Circles before it goes up, you're locked in forever at these very low prices. So go to optimizedcircles.com if you want to get in on that. And as long as you remain a member, you keep that price. Of course, if you drop off, you get back in at the doubled price. So I'll tell you right up, that's going to be doubled. So many times I hear in those groups and in the membership site, they will say, well, you know, I was never able to do anything right. I never could find a way to please the parents. What can I do? What can I do now that I've recognized that? So that's the impetus for tonight. So the very first thing that I want to tell you will help you rebuild your self-esteem after emotional abuse is to embrace the fact that you deserve, by virtue of your birth, you deserve to take up space and draw breath. Can you let that in? You deserve to take up space and draw breath. You have a place here. Many times I've said to my clients, if you want to recognize how important you are, take a photo of yourself. You know, back in the day, I used to take a Polaroid photo of my client. And then I would have them look, and it would be out in nature, so there would be trees and sky and all those things around. And then I would have them erase themselves. And there would be a hole, because they are integral to life. Their existence is integral to life. And we're part of all that. And we deserve to take up space and draw breath. Okay, just say to yourself and affirm that. I deserve to take up space and draw a breath because I exist. That's a big right. It's a big right to accord yourself. Especially after a hijackal who's marginalized you, pushed you over to the edge, pushed you down, put you down, worn you down, and to always have superiority over you. So very, very important. So Yehudit said, I'm in the process of divorcing a hijackal, and I'm being so delegitimized. Oh, that's just what they do. I realize more and more how much I was during the marriage as well, and only now understand the extent of it. And delegitimized by him. Yes, I mean, they cannot stand the fact, even if they don't like you and they've told you how horrible you are and what a dysfunctional human you are and how crazy you are and how unsatisfactory it is to be with you, they don't like to be left. They like to be the ones who leave. And even if they're the ones who leave, they want to believe that you will run after them. These wonderful prize people that have put you down so much, they want you to come running after them. And then they go off and they get more supply. And when that supply diminishes, the next thing they do is come running back to you to see if they can get more. And, you know, I was saying to a group the other day that it's a bit like that marketing thing. Like, it's always easier, marketers tell you, to sell to a customer who's bought from you before than it is to go out and get a new customer. And hijackals feel that way. You know, you may divorce them, but if their supply runs out, if they don't have someone feeding their ego and their need for domination and control, they'll come around again and try to get in your good graces or try to upset you so that they feel powerful. Sorry, Yehudit, I'm sure you don't want to hear that while you're talking about just getting a divorce, but that's what they do. And this delegitimize is part of the idealize, devalue, and discard cycle that hijackals have. And so now once you get free of this idea of this person, or they're out of your house or whatever, the first thing is to be able to affirm to yourself that you deserve to take up space and draw breath. You have every right to be here. And as a result of the right to take up space and draw breath, you also have the right to be assertive. And my definition of assertion is this: that you have the right to say what you think, feel, need, and want, as long as you do not mention another human by name or pronoun. So only speaking about yourself, you have that right. And if you've been suppressed and depressed, repressed by a hijackal, you may not want to speak up. You may second guess yourself. Is it safe to speak up? Am I allowed to say what I need or I think or I want or I feel? Will anybody be interested? And this is the beginning of improving your self-esteem. Yes, there will be lots of people who are interested, but you have to be interested in you first. So begin by recognizing and affirming that you have the right to take up space and draw breath. So very important. So that's the first step. And the second step to rebuilding self-esteem is to completely withdraw your attention and your affection and your hope from the abuser. You need to take that all back. I don't care what that person thinks. I don't care what that person wants. I don't care what that person has said or done that reflects on me. I do not believe a word of it any longer, and I completely withdraw. And if the abuser's voice keeps coming up in our head, we notice it and we say, no, I'm going to replace that voice with my own voice. I deserve to take up space and draw breath. I am a worthwhile person. I have much to give. And I care about other humans in a healthy, positive way. And you do not let that abuser's voice come into your consciousness for more than a nanosecond before you replace it with your own voice. Does that make sense to you? Because there's this draw. You're so used to being enmeshed with a hijackal that there's the draw to, oh, second guess yourself. Should I return? Were they right about me? Was that accurate? Many times in groups, people will say to me, well, I'm thinking that maybe I'm the narc because the hijackal keeps telling me I'm a hijackal. Am I one? Should I believe them? My answer to that is always, if you are self-reflective enough to consider you might be the one with the problem, it's highly unlikely that you are a hijackal or a narcissist. But it is important in this step number 2 is to completely withdraw attention, concern, thoughts, memories, anything from your time with your abuser. It's so important. Because as soon as you get them out of the real estate in your head, the sooner you do that, the sooner you will be able to replace that with good things, healthy things, wise things, useful things, and accurate things. Because whatever a hijackal has told you is inaccurate. Everything that they said had to do for them wanting to have domination and control, superiority. It had nothing to do with you. It had all about them wanting to win. And you need to really get that right down to your toes. So very important to withdraw your attention, affection. I know that's hard because that was the source of your affection. And also to withdraw hope. When you've been with a hijackal for a long time, you have a hope that the person you fell in love with, that sham person, that person that doesn't exist, that they sold you in the beginning, you are hooked on the hope that that good person, that wonderful, loving person, that person who seemed to know you and care about you and put you first will return. And they won't. They will only return when they love bomb you, when they really want something. But the rest of the time, it will be muchly diminished, right? You've probably had that experience. So very important to withdraw your attention and your affection and the hope that things could be different. Okay, number 3, that you're going to forgive yourself for having been part of all of that unpleasantness. So before we move on, let's see what Yehudit said. But sometimes I tend to still believe his words, this name-calling, his blaming, accusations, and even when I know I'm a good person. Of course you do. That's the most natural thing in the world. When somebody is constantly telling you who you are, there is a tendency to believe them, especially when you're hoping that that good person that you first met is going to show up again. So just forgive yourself for that. You did it because it was the enticing, the attractive, a fine thing to do. They're the ones who created all the misery. They're the ones who switched. They were the bait and switch artists. And then they started beating you down. So it is really important to forgive yourself. And forgiveness is something you do for yourself. You don't do it for another person. But in this case, I'm saying to you, don't worry about forgiving the abuser. You can do that too. But for your self-esteem, forgive yourself. Don't spend any time beating yourself up in your head. Oh, why did I do it for so long? Why didn't I see it? Why did I bring children into it? You know, all these things I've heard. But you did it because you are a person who loved and believed and hoped and longed for and thought you could compromise, thought you could work things out, thought if you were compassionate enough that those people would change because they would be comfortable and they would feel loved. You did it for all the right reasons, so please don't spend another moment in any way thinking that you did things poorly. You know differently now. You've moved in a new direction. Don't take the old stuff with you. So forgive yourself for being part of anything to do with the hijackal. Just forgive yourself for it. When you know better, when you see differently, you do and see things differently. And until that moment that it happens, you don't. It's as simple as that. It's not right, wrong, good or bad. It simply is. Will you let yourself off the hook? Not do that. Not go back. Because you go back, you start feeling the same feelings. You know, when things like that happen, it's like striking a harp, right? You touch one string, but all the other ones resonate. You don't want to be doing that because that can re-wound you. That can open new things. So you want your mind to move toward the future, to the present first, and how you want to be and how you want to be moving forward. I have a new podcast that's starting in late August or September. It's called Focus on Forward. Fuel for Fearless Living. Because I want to deal with all the positive sides of this as well. So I'm starting that new podcast. And that's what I'm inviting you to do today. No matter whether it was your parent or your partner or your ex or whomever it is that fell in the hijackal category and diminished your self-esteem, just put it in the past. I know that's not easy. I'm not suggesting it's easy. But when you recognize it, turn your head around and face forward. Can't do anything about all that. Take the wisdom and move forward. Make sense? Good. All right. So we have 3 things to do. Embrace that you deserve to take up space and draw breath. You have those rights. Withdraw attention and affection and hope from the abuser. Don't give it another bit of energy. And then forgive yourself for ever being part of it. Now you know better. Now you see better. You will do better. Couldn't have done it a moment sooner, but now you can. And now is the time to do it. So what's number 4? Now we get into being proactive, really moving into, what do I want to be like? What do I want my life to look like? So in this proactivity, you have this opportunity to be self-reflective. Know your values. Know what's important to you. If you don't know your values, you can't know your boundaries. So you need to know what you value, what's most important to you. What kind of things in life do you not want to be without? Would you like to live again with unfairness? Probably not. Would you like to live with injustice? No. So maybe fairness and justice are things that are important to you. You've lived with a hijackal, so you see that there's no integrity. So maybe you recognize at a deep level that integrity is very important to you. And integrity comes along with authenticity. And authenticity begins with knowing your values, knowing what is extremely important to you, knowing what you don't want to live without. Have you ever done an exercise where you look at your values, you work them out, you work them through? I created an exercise called the Value Shuffle, and I take my clients through it when it's appropriate so that they really get a long, good, hard, positive look. And once they get that Value Shuffle exercise completed, they can make decisions faster because they know themselves so well. So take the time to engage with yourself, to know your values, to know what you don't want to live without, what kind of a world you want to live in, and keep that very, very clear. So important. Many people, they say, oh, I know my values. I value family. I value love. I value all these things. They could list them off. But I'll tell you, I was working with a couple once who told me that family was most important to them, just so very important. And they had four children ranging in age from 4 to 14, I think, if I recall correctly. And they'd come to me because they weren't getting along at all. And we were looking at their values. They both agreed family was a very important value. Love was a very important value. And communication was a very important value. So at one point in our work together, I said to them, all right, the next step, because they were very busy, they owned a business together. The next step is to have 2 times in the week before I see you again, where you have made an appointment with each other, sat down and discussed important things. I'd given them a list. Discussed a couple of these things in depth, no TV, no distractions, just sit down, look at each other, and have this discussion. Oh yeah, we can do that, they said. Okay, they came back in the next week. I said, how did those 2 45-minute pieces go? And they went, we were too busy for that. Okay, so then you would like me to believe that communication, love, and family are your most important values? Well, if they're not demonstrated in your behavior by working on this family relationship, communicating and loving each other enough to spend time together, how can I believe those are your values? And they were horrified. Well, of course there are values, but we had a very busy week. I said, no, the one big thing that I can help my clients understand is this. And if they only learn this one thing, I am beyond thrilled, and I hope they learn many, many more. And that is that the truth is what you do. I don't care what you say. I don't care what anybody says. I care what they do, because that's where they show me what they really believe. The truth is what you do. Where do you actually place your time, energy, money, attention? That's what's important to you. So when you're looking at someone, You say, well, let's look at their behavior. I don't care what they have to say unless it matches their behavior. And when you have a match between what they say and what they do, yay, winner. But so many times we can have the conversation and hear the words, and then when we look at the behaviors, they don't match. And in that case, always, always believe the behavior. Always. Do you see how important that is? That's why it's one of the most important things that I can help anybody learn. The truth is what you do. And first of all, you have to apply it to yourself. So to that couple, if they wanted to tell me and each other that love and family and communication were their most important values, and they couldn't make 2 45-minute slots in their whole week to talk about something as important as things that would move their relationship to a higher level, I'm sorry. I got a dissonance here. I have a misfit. This doesn't work. Do you see that? So important. So number 3 is know your values and also know what priority they have in your life. And number 5 is you have to do your own work. There are going to be things in your background that made you attracted to and attractive to a hijackal. And that's what I'm talking about doing your own work. You need to go back and open the emotional Santa Claus bag that is your life and be willing to have a look at it to see what's in here that's worth keeping and which things should be replaced. Because you don't want to repeat the experience. This is why I always say to people who are leaving, and Yehudit, this would be good for you to think about, is that when you're leaving, you're going to need to have a whole examining process that will only be the beginning of your healing. You need to be able to say, okay, I navigated this journey and I am now on my own again, but I don't ever want to repeat this journey. So I'm going to give myself the gift of working through how did that happen? Why did it go on? What did I learn from it? What am I going to do as a result of that learning? That's all part of the healing process. And I have a new 6-month coaching program called Transform After Abuse. And the tagline is heal, rise, trust, love again. And whether you have a new partner is not the issue. The issue is that you can love yourself again, that you can be open to love, that you are not living under the shadow of the relationship with a hijackal. And that's what's really important about that. So you need to do your own work, because if you don't do your own work, you can't know what your boundaries are. You know, I remember when I was a young mom and I had a baby before I was married, back in the day when that was a terrible thing to do, and my family wanted to disown me and told me to abort and did all kinds of things. But way back then, I was very, very clear that this baby was my responsibility. You know, if you're going to do the crime, you better do the time. Well, in this case, I was going to have a baby and I was okay with it. And I remember a guy came and he kind of fancied me and he knew about the baby, and he came and I had a new kitten. And so the baby was asleep and I was sitting with this fellow and we were getting to know each other, and the kitten came by. And the guy picked the kitten up and threw it across the room. And I went, all I need to know, out the door, gone, never want to see you again. Clear, clear, clear. And I was very happy that I could be that clear about it. I had a clear boundary, even at that young age. And you need those clear boundaries too if you want to have self-esteem. Because self-esteem says, I know who I am, I know what's okay with me and what's not okay with me, and I'm willing to express it. And not only am I willing to express it, I am willing to have non-negotiable boundaries. Like nobody throws a cat across the room in my presence and gets to stay and talk to me. Nobody. Okay? So, yeah, a boundary. This is okay. This is not okay. There's the boundary. Tiny little space, almost imperceptible between them. Okay, not okay. Clear. So you need to do your own work to know what your values are and to know then what's okay with you, what's not okay. And by doing your own work, you'll also learn to communicate in ways that other people can hear, ways that are speaking about yourself. Remember, I gave you the definition just a little bit ago of assertiveness, which is that you have the right to say what you think, feel, need, and want as long as you don't talk about any other human by name or pronoun. So you need to grow into that. Perhaps you didn't have that right when you were younger, and now you can have it. So that makes it also very, very important, right? Make sure that you know for sure. Give yourself the opportunity to write in the chat if you have a question or a comment. Love to see it there. I'm glad that you're here because it shows that you really want to continue growing and getting stronger and having the best life possible. So I'm glad you're here. And if you want other information from me, go to my website, transformingrelationship.com. Transformingrelationship.com. So you can learn to transform your relationship with yourself, with your other humans in your life, your relationship to things in your life, the relationship to your values, all of that. Transformingrelationship.com, and become a member at optimizedcircles.com. Okay, so we have 5 things clearly. And then I gave you the definition, my definition of assertiveness. So number 6 is practice being assertive. Because with a hijackal, they had no interest in you being assertive. They weren't the least bit interested in what you said or thought or wanted or needed. They were only interested in themselves. So you may have lost that ability some, if you ever had it. And so I really encourage you to practice being assertive. You know, when I wrote Kaizen for Couples, this book, I've mentioned it to you before. Kaizen for Couples is not just for couples, it's for any relationship. And in chapters 5 and 6, I talk about this very, very important strategy that I developed called the Personal Weather Report. And it is powerful, so, so powerful. And it sounds simple. It's not that easy. You have to practice, but it will change your relationships with yourself and other humans. So you need to practice being assertive. Does anybody on the call have a problem with being assertive? And if so, let's talk about that. Put it in the chat. Because you have the right to be assertive. You're not going to tromp over anyone. You're not going to be aggressive. But you have the right to be assertive. That's a really, really super big deal. And I hope that you take that right and you express things because you absolutely have that right. Assertiveness is not aggressiveness. But if you have come from a home where speaking up is not a good idea, people may mistake your assertiveness for being aggressive. And you've got to work that through too, because that's quite possible. It could happen. All right, so you're going to practice being assertive. And number 7, there are 8 tonight I want to share with you. Number 7 is know what you're moving towards. Okay, maybe as you were saying, Yehudit, you are moving toward your divorce and what your new life will be. And maybe you're in that process and you're giving it all you have and it takes all your attention and energy. But also as you get through that process and you come out the other side or in quiet moments of self-reflection, start creating a word picture of what you are moving toward, what the life is you want, how you want to feel, what you want to do, how you want to engage. All those things, so important. So you need to have that picture. You need to give yourself that strong picture so that you can kind of inhabit that world. You can kind of move into it and start creating it. So it's good to know what you don't want. It's better to know what you do want and what you're moving toward. So many times when I say to somebody, what do you want? And they say, well, I know what I don't want. Yes, that's good. But let's make that flip. Let's be moving positively forward. That's the new podcast coming out in a month or so. Focus on forward. What are you moving toward? Know why you want it and know the steps you're going to take. So important. So Yehuda said, I enjoy personal weather report because it makes me become a better person together with communicating healthfully. Great, because that's exactly what it's designed to do. You're not going to blame anybody for anything. You're going to take full responsibility for sharing what's going on within you. And I give you that formula in the book, Kaizen for Couples. And it's downloadable on Amazon, so you don't even have to wait for it to arrive. Although it's a beautiful book, it's color inside and everything about it is quite lovely. You don't have to wait for that. You can download it and see it immediately. So I'm glad, Yehuda, that it made sense to you and that you're embracing it fully, because it can change your life and your relationships and certainly your communication. So very, very important. And number 8 now. Once you have these things in place, and I've mentioned embrace, that you have the right to take up space and draw breath, withdraw from giving the abuser, the hijackal, any attention, affection, or hope. Withdraw from the abuser completely. Forgive yourself for ever having been down that road with that person, anything that happened or who you were while you were with them. And then know your values and know exactly what the priority of those values are. Do your own work so that you can, in fact, create affirmative, strong, expressible boundaries. Practice being assertive, and then know what you're moving toward so that you can do number 8, which is affirm that you have the right to a healthy, happy, loving life. And that may sound like, oh, that sounds a little woo-woo. No, we've got to replace some programming in our brain. We've done a lot of ain't it awful and he done me wrong and she was a mess and all that kind of thing, or I was a mess, or all those things. We need to have replacement things, right? We're not just changing the things that we do have. We're having replacement things. So it may sound like, I deserve to have a happy, healthy life. I have the right to say what is so for me as long as I do it, not mentioning anybody else. I embrace the possibility of a happy, healthy relationship with myself and other humans. I forgive myself entirely for the fact that I only just learned that being with a hijackal is not what I wanted to be. I embrace the fact that I have put myself in a position to have a healthier, happier life. You start to affirm those things. And when that little question comes into your mind, you go, no. I affirm that this is what is so for me now. This is what I'm drawing into my life. This is what I'm moving toward. And I affirm that clearly and frequently. Because you're repatterning the way you think and the way you talk to yourself. And you have to do that consciously because it will make a big difference to you. So who else has something to say? Do you have a question? Do you have anything to say about these steps that I've given you for rebuilding self-esteem? Yehuda says, my problem in life is that no matter how much I try to be assertive, reflecting how I feel in a mature way, as we mentioned, he just doesn't hear it. Oh, he's not going to. He doesn't want to hear it. And keeping on talking nonsense and trying to hurt. So remember, I've talked before about how important it is to know how to put up your own Teflon Shield. That shield that goes up and you just say, okay, I'm safe. The hijackal is going to show, in this case, who he is. And I am just going to let what he does or says hit the shield and go, oh, hijackal behavior, oh, hijackal thing to say, and you're not going to let it get to you. You're not going to expect it to be different because he's not going to change. And you are no longer going to be hurt by it or even interested in it. And that's something you have to cultivate So, yes, just be assertive for yourself. He doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to think that you have one right in the world. You just be very assertive. He says something, you just say, that's not the way I remember it. I remember it this way. That's not what I said. What I said is this. You are just assertive. He doesn't want to hear it. You're doing it for yourself. Where you really need to be assertive is when you have an attorney and you go to court. Be very, very assertive. Ask for what you need and want. Tell the truth. Don't try and protect the hijackal. I had someone the other day say, well, if we go to court and I tell them how they lied and what they did on their tax return and all that, it could jeopardize their position in the community. This was a person with a high position in the church community. She said, what should I do? I said, tell the truth. You're not jeopardizing them. They already jeopardized themselves. Just tell the truth. It's not an effort to be unkind or to ruin them or anything. Simply tell the truth. And for some people, that takes a little mental gymnastics because you're used to protecting the other person. But now you need to protect you, and you can protect yourself with the truth, even if that's only in your own mind. I was working with a client today who said, I don't think I'm going to go to court anymore because the judge has already decided that my ex is absolutely telling the truth. And every time I go, they dismiss everything I say and they say that, he's right. She said, I'm at the point of just saying it's not worth it for me to use my energy in this way. And you have to know when to hold and know when to fold. You absolutely do. And dealing with a hijackal, being assertive, they're not interested in that. They're not interested in you. They're interested in them. And you would just be inconvenient if you were being assertive. Do you have to speak? That kind of thing. They're not interested. So, don't try to engage them. Just move on. Know what you're moving toward. These things will enhance your self-esteem. They will make it easier for you to feel better and better about yourself. And Yehuda says, sad if the court really becomes one-sided. Yes, it is very sad. Unfortunately, it happens too frequently. Courts are very backed up. Time is very short. The court can only be presented with a snapshot, not the whole video of the relationship, but just a snapshot. And then decisions are made. And it often doesn't work out very well. I wish I could tell you that it did. Never confuse the legal system with a justice system. They are not the same. So be realistic when you're going to court that, get the most fierce on your side vocal attorney that you can have, one who has lots of strength to stand up to things and see things and word things really well. Give it your absolute best shot. Be persistent for a while. But if you happen to get a judge who is already completely colored and being manipulated by the hijackal on the other side, eventually, this person's been going to court for 18 months, eventually you're going to make a decision like she did. I don't think I want to do it anymore. And then you will settle. And you may not get what you wanted, but you will get back your peace of mind. And I'm not saying for one moment don't engage and be assertive and aggressive about what you want and engage an attorney who will be aggressive for you. By all means, do that so you feel good that you did that. But if it starts to fade and if it starts to seem impossible and it's taking too much out of you, sometimes the energetic toll is too much. And you have to know when to hold and when to fold. So many things that can help you rebuild your self-esteem after emotional abuse. That person, that hijackal, is not the arbiter of who you are. You are. Do not let them influence another moment as to how you think about yourself. What they said about you was totally inaccurate. Everything they said about you was self-serving to feed their own ego. It has nothing to do with who you are. So you have a fresh look. So many times when I'm helping people rebuild their self-esteem after this has happened, I use these very things that I've shared with you tonight. And I know that it doesn't always go quickly. Sometimes it's very slow, but it's worthwhile work. Very worthwhile work. And I hope that you will accord yourself that. Now, we have a few minutes left. If you have any questions, they can be random. They don't have to be about self-esteem. Maybe you have a question or a comment about something that I've said, or maybe you have a question about something miles away that have to do with self-esteem or living with a hijackal, or maybe something else. But now is your opportunity to ask, because I'm only going to give a couple more minutes for questions to arise. And in the meantime, while I'm doing that, I will invite you again to go to transformingrelationship.com. You can find my blog, you can find the podcast, all of that. I hope you've subscribed to the YouTube channel and hit the little bell beside the subscribe. If you haven't hit that little bell, it will always remind you when there's a new video. So very, very important. So I'm not seeing any comments or any questions tonight. I hope this has been useful to you. I hope that you will find it worth listening to again if there were things that you'd like to be reminded about. And I hope that you will return, maybe tell a friend or two that may need this kind of information or may want this kind of interaction, and that you will extend this interaction to becoming a member over at optimizedcircles.com. We're getting close to the last minutes when you can get in at this wonderful price. And I want that for you, because that gives you access to me safely off social media. It's all housed on my site, and that makes it safe. All right, so here we do have a question. Juan said, how do I know if someone likes me? Oh my goodness, that's a big question. Well, I'll give you an idea or two. They want to hear what you have to say, and they ask. They lean in and are curious about who you are. They don't talk about themselves all the time. There is equity and balance in a conversation. And that they give you signals and signs. Now, if you're talking about just someone you meet, those things all apply. If you're talking about somebody that you might have a romantic interest in, then, of course, you're going to notice a few other pieces of body language. That they will hold your gaze longer, that they will not look away as readily as a stranger on the street or somebody that you don't know well. They will lean into you. They maybe reach over and touch you more frequently than someone else. Maybe they call you more frequently. I'm not sure exactly what your question pertains to, but Juan, if there's anything that I can add to that, put it in the chat right now. And Yehuda said, how is that explained? How is it their opinions about me are meaningless? And why do I and others believe these words? Ooh, loaded. The truth is that they don't see you. They don't see who you are. They don't see your heart. They don't see what you want or need or think or feel. They see through the lens of getting what they want and need. So their opinions about you are based in whether you give them what they want or not. And that's a pretty poor criteria for them having opinions about you. So the opinions that they have are based on whether they're getting what they want from you, whether you are pleasing to them, whether they need power at the moment and they just want to crush you, whether they need something from you and they're going to love bomb you. But their opinions about who you are meaningless because they're inaccurate. They don't see you. And because they don't see you, they certainly can't see you clearly. So yes, they're full of opinions, but they're inaccurate. And why do others believe their words? I'm thinking that that's what you're meaning. Well, because hijackals paint a public picture of perfection while they are creating a private place of pain at home. So they're great at showing the world a side of them, which is why we know that they choose to abuse, because they don't abuse everyone. If they couldn't help themselves, they would abuse their boss, they would abuse a person on the street, they would abuse everyone. But they single you out and abuse you, which is why we know they choose to abuse. And so they put on this public picture of perfection so that they will look good and be validated by a whole lot of people. And then they have their little supply, you, of people that they put down, tear down, wear down. They'll do that to their children as well. Maybe they'll do it to close relatives. But out in the world, they want everybody to think that they are all sunshine, rainbows, light, and unicorns. And so others believe them because that's what they show them. And when you go out and say, but no, that's not how they are at home, they're saying, well, it must be your fault. And a caveat about that too, Yehuda, while you brought it up, and I'm so glad you did, that be careful when you interview a therapist. You know, many times people have said to me, oh, finally, somebody who gets it. Well, if therapists don't deal with this all the time, a hijackal will manipulate the therapist into believing them and rewounding you. And you're probably the one who is so delighted that you finally got to see a therapist or a counselor, some kind of mental health professional. And then you just watch as the hijackal manipulates, deceives, lies to the therapist in an attempt to seduce and exploit and charm them into believing them. So now the therapist and they are aligned, and now it's your problem. It's you who has problems, you who needs to be fixed. And too many people have told me that that's the case, that it has happened to them, that they have been rewounded in that situation. So when you are looking for a therapist, make sure that you ask people about what their experience is dealing with narcissists or sociopaths or borderlines or psychopaths or histrionics. Those are the drama queens and kings of the world. Ask them. Ask them if they clearly can see that. Ask them those questions. Because you can tell them straight out, I want to feel safe being with you. And here's what'll happen. The hijack will endeavor to manipulate into you believing their side of the story. And I don't want that to happen. I'm not willing to put out my time, energy, and money and invest in the hope that things will be different if you are not someone who's experienced with seeing these things. And ask enough questions. Okay, I hope that's been helpful to you. I'm so glad that you're here. I'll be back next week. We're going to talk about the rights that you have as a human being. And are you actually accepting those rights? Are you embodying those rights? Or are you not? And why not? And how you can. And why this is so, so very important. So I hope you'll be back for that. I'll hope you invite a few people. When I put out the invitation to say, here's what's going to happen on tonight's live stream, please feel free on any social media to share it and say to other people, hey, this looks good. Maybe you'd like to come along. And that's how we get the word out. That's how we get to the people who are suffering in silence, is to invite them that maybe they could hear something that would be helpful to them. And using a personal weather report, you could say, well, this has been really helpful to me. I just wanted to share it with you. I don't know if it'd be something of interest to you, but at least you opened the door and you invited them. So again, I'm so glad you're here. I look forward to joining you again. And I also hope to see you over at optimizedcircles.com. Become a member. Do it soon. And then we can interact safely off social media at any time that you have a question, and you'll get support from other members as well. Take good care. Treat yourself well. You matter. I'm so glad you heard it. She said, this was very meaningful to me. I get emotional strength from your words. I am so glad. That's why I do this, and I'm so glad it's helpful to you, and you are so very welcome. Take good care of yourself. You matter, and I care about you. and I hope that you will too. Talk soon.